I'm recording. Okay, so we're recording. Today is Tuesday, February 1st. I'm just super excited to have amazing people in conversation. And we just thought we should record the conversation because I think other people will find it amazing also. So maybe just like a little brief introduction for everybody. My name is Luke. I work in computers, technology stuff, blockchain, crypto stuff, but I'm also more recently, especially very interested in consciousness, theories of everything, being less wrong about my true nature and the nature of reality. And through these different intentions that I put out in the universe, I've been able to connect with really amazing people. We call them multidimensional thinkers, and they seem to find me and I seem to find them. And it's a beautiful, amazing thing. And you two are amazing examples of that. So I'd love for you to kind of maybe give just a little brief of what you're about, and then just kind of maybe summarize. Now maybe you could summarize kind of the idea that brought us together as far as getting people together that care about the nature of reality, that care about actually applied spirituality, not just let's philosophize, but really like we're going to build stuff, do stuff, new governance system, new economic systems, and of course, crypto, blockchain, DAX, DAOs. That's kind of where I'm, that's my side of it, but you all have been studying it from multiple angles as well. And I just think it's a beautiful example of something that's getting birthed. We don't know what it is yet, but it's pretty neat.
Love it. Erez, why don't you go and then I'll introduce the idea as well.
Sure. I would describe myself these days as a true wellness counselor and someone who's been working on the challenges of how to increase the wellness of our world, most specifically our species, and how we're interacting amongst each other and with our planet. And I spent several years on this and written multiple books and have a bunch of work. It's a matter of time to apply all that work and see how best to do so.
Awesome. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wellness, so important. Such an amazing indicator. Apropos, primary indicators. Wellness is a real, and you can see it in nature. You can go to a natural park, national park, and you can see the vitality compared to a little park in a little corner on you can see the wellness of the different ecosystems. So beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Natalie Zeituny. I'm currently in Israel. I'm interested in exploring theories of everything, cosmologies, the nature of reality and consciousness. Definitely it has to do with spirituality. I see spirituality as a deeper realm and an unconscious, deeper, subtle realm that is informing the physical reality we experience. So definitely it's a big player. So that's why I really welcome Erez's input and his own journey with that. Now, I contacted Luke and we came together in order to explore if we bring multiple ways of knowing, multiple ways that they could be rigorous scientific inquiry about a domain, but they could also be a dance, a piece of art, an experience, phenomenologically. So all ways of knowing, when we allow them to talk with each other, could we create a platform or could we create a hub or space for these ways of knowing to talk with each other such that there's another level of intelligence and insight and wellness that's created for the whole human species. So the purpose of the project is first to create that meeting place and to disseminate the information to whoever is interested in it, and to allow these ways of knowing to interact so they can serve the planet, they can serve the people and all the organisms and beyond. Now, I'm not going to go beyond because sometimes people are not cosmologically or cosmos oriented. I'm very cosmically oriented. It's in my work. So I see us on a planet, in a galaxy, in a dance with other galaxies around suns and around multiple suns and around the whole cosmos. So I can actually zoom out and see it. Not everybody is interested in that. I am interested in that. But right now, the purpose is not the cosmos, even though we may collaborate with it and with the messages from the cosmos, messages, insights, intuitive guidance. But the purpose is really how to allow this planet to thrive. This planet with all its inhabitants, how could we allow her to thrive? how could we allow ourselves to thrive? And so that's why wellness is really important. I believe crypto, blockchain, DAOs are very important because they're on the edge of our technological kind of impulse. And maybe we could bring more, maybe we could bring, I don't know, CRISPR, gene editing. I'm not saying that I support it, but I think we need to look at our relationship with technology as we're developing this platform. So I'm open to what it looks like, how it looks like. It's something that belongs to the whole. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's like the wiki or the internet. I mean, hopefully we can say it doesn't belong to anybody, but because in China it's not the case. But hopefully the purpose is to design something that belongs to everybody. So that's that. Now I'm open to, you know,
yeah, let me, I guess, since I've kind of become the connector a little bit for some of the things that are, some of the ideas that I've been excited about is, it started very simple. And I love the way you articulated it, where it was like information or data, then becoming information, then becoming something more practical, applied and useful eventually to wisdom and insight. And so my thought was in the beginning was just like, do these even groups just know about each other? Like this person's doing an amazing thing that joined Seeds, and Firon.com is doing a bunch of cool stuff. And there's so many neat applied, we're going to change the world because we're changing reality because we're building new systems for the human species. And then there's people saying, hey, do you even know what reality is? And so one of my recent thoughts was the reason why Bitcoin in particular was so interesting and impactful for me, it's been over 9 years now, is because it got me to question what is money. And yet I spent most of my life away from my family, away from leisure activity, like working a job to earn money. And I never even knew what money was. And I started thinking about, wait a minute, I think we're doing similar things when we're trying to change reality, but we don't even know what reality is. So we don't know the unintended consequences of our actions. We don't know, you know, we have our intentions, but then we might be completely doing the opposite of our very intention if we don't understand kind of what we're experiencing. And so that's why I've been kind of backing up a little bit, going, well, the tech is cool, the blockchain, the crypto, that's all cool. But really, like, before I go jumping into that, I want to know what the heck's going on and be less wrong about it. That's my bigger thing, is like, you know, removing these falsehoods in my own perspective. And so part of the idea was just simply a spreadsheet, just like get a database where we start putting information in there. So even just within our own local networks, we have people we know that don't know other people we know, and just helping them say, hey, you should know about each other. There's some cool stuff going on. And then on top of that, and this I think is the interesting, tricky part, is using technology, whether it's immersive experiences or short videos or blog posts, or, you know, and I love how, Erez, you've been exploring a lot of that. You know, Natalie, you've written some beautiful visualizations for some of your ideas, and thinking about how can we quickly onboard people. And the irony of this is also what the crypto blockchain industry needs. It's too technical, it's too confusing. People can't understand crypto blockchain quickly and easily in a little 3-minute video, usually. So the idea that if we could empower people to be able to do this across the board, to say, hey, I can quickly and easily communicate something that's very complex, very dense, maybe has many decades of, you know, information behind it, so that people can go, oh yeah, I resonate with that. This one, not so much. This one, they're kind of off. This one, I'm not really feeling. It's kind of cold, cold. Oh, hot, hot, warm, warm. And you go this direction, and you get to dive deeper, and then you can co-collaborate. And so that was the idea of saying, I'm all about, you know, individual experimentation going on. Like the resiliency of evolution is there's a lot of duplicated effort and wastefulness in a sense, but that gives it the resilience. We have multiple experiments going, you know, they both co-evolve the same thing in different ways and different, okay, fine, whatever. What I want to avoid, hopefully, is just wasted effort, reinventing the wheel, things where it's like, I'm going to spend 10 years building something that somebody already spent 10 years building the same thing. And if we had worked together, we might have even built something better because we had exactly the same intentions and alignment and perspectives, maybe with a couple different minor differences. So that was kind of my interest in this idea of, I want to move forward with my experience of life. And I love the language Erez uses, increase the ability to function, and life being that which functions. And as I'm thinking about that, going, okay, cool. What does that mean? Like, if I'm increasing the ability to function of things that I think are bad, you know, that would not be according to my intention, right? And so I want to think through, what do those words mean? Bad, good, intention, you know, increasing ability to function, all this stuff. And you all are experts, and I love to learn from you. So that was kind of my thought, is as much as I value connecting and learning from you, as much as I value listening to you connect and critique and describe and discuss and disagree and agree on your own cosmological theory of everything, worldviews, I think others like me would feel the same joy and value in that. And then as you go, oh, that's a new language I like, let me tweak what I'm doing a little bit. incorporate that into my own toe or whatever it might be. So that was my thoughts. And that's why I think it's super valuable. And I just love that it's starting with two amazing people. And I know there are many more who would love to be part of this conversation.
Excellent. So I'd like to just, for the sake of the recording, just to note that it's not, life is not that which functions, it's actually reality.
Yes, thank you.
It's that which functions.
Yes.
Life is actually a self-perpetuating process, very similar to a recursive loop in computer programming, since everyone here is familiar with this. So, the self-generation, or the analogy I use for people that are not familiar with computer programming is machines that build machines that build machines. It's a very similar sort of concept. Each cycle being a generation. That's why we call them generations, self-generating. So with that preface, I wish to point out some things from my prior experiences, because I've been down a similar path as what we're describing, talking about some years ago. And I had findings from my experiences. And this was, I was being a global nomad, traveling around the world, meeting people who were interested in basically saving the world and all that kind of stuff. And what I was discovering was that there's a lot of different short cosmologies, belief structures, a lot of different ways of understanding things and different value systems. So if you were to condense everything from all the different perspectives, it generally sort of boiled down to, I would like life to be better for everyone. And the problem with that, of course, is that better is subjective. Good and bad are subjective. The reason that they exist at all is in order to define ourselves. It's all about the sense of self. And the problem with that is that when you are combining other selves, each with its own identity, you inevitably have differences. And differences between what is considered good, what is considered bad. And so it makes it much more difficult to have a sense of common purpose, and much more difficult to align and cooperate one's actions. And so that's one of the things I was working on for some years is, okay, how to actually address this, how to resolve this. And the solution that I came up with is that fundamentally we must do away with this notion of good and bad as being important. That's not fundamentally it. It's actually wellness and illness that are important. We understand that wellness is the increased ability to function, and illness is the decreased ability to function. We understand that reality is that which functions, and therefore you can only have wellness and illness for that which is real. So all these ideas that we have and all these concepts and numbers, you cannot harm a number, right? It's not possible. You cannot harm a pattern. You can change it. You cannot make it ill because it's not functioning. And that is a major distinction that then allows us to say, okay, I can agree that wellness is better than illness. I can agree to this. I can align to this. And therefore, I can make sure that, okay, let's see, what am I doing, right? What are my actions in relation to increasing the ability of everything to function? Or to what extent is it decreasing it? And that gives us a basis for something to talk about, which is beyond good and bad, beyond the sense of self. Because it's no longer about my sense of identity. It's no longer about my belief structures, which change throughout everyone's life. Their beliefs change. So it's no longer about something which is so adaptable. It's something that is more stable. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And you and I have gone back and forth a number of times as far as like me just still trying to refine and clarify and really filter out my own shadow, really is what it is, about what increasing functioning means. If someone's intention is, well, my ability to function is to control as many people as possible. It's like, well, that decreases their ability to function. But this gets into the whole, like, are we just relabeling utilitarianism or something like I'm always questioning whether or not we're just relabeling philosophical concepts that have been discussed for hundreds or even thousands of years and thinking we did something new. And this is where, Wittgenstein and these different philosophers say, oh, all philosophy is just argumentation over language. We're not really like doing anything new or interesting under the sun. And so this is where I always want to tease out the meanings we have to see if that's true or not. Like, is that really what we're doing? Are we just and you got like Sam Harris's the moral landscape, which I feel is somewhat similar to what you're talking about. You have peaks and valleys of the human experience. And we can never really define exactly what's good and bad, but we just have peaks and valleys, and we can agree this scenario is better or worse than this scenario. And I like how you say this one increases ability function, this one decreases ability function. But so in some of the discussions I've had since meeting with you and learning about some of your ways of phrasing this, I have had people say, well, what if I just want to, my increasing function is this, that, and the other? Or what if slavery increases the ability to function? So therefore slavery is okay. But even if a few individuals want to be free and another, but on the whole, the net is a positive. So I guess they just have to suck it up. And, these are the type of things that I want to tease out a little bit more. But as an example, you and I wouldn't be able to have that depth if we didn't have a first way to connect to each other. And that was kind of just chance meeting at the monastery, after, as part of Brock's campaign. And we had that moment in person where we're like, wow, at least I did. I was like, this person's incredible. I want to stay connected with this person. And we were able to do that through technology and Facebook and this, that, and the other. And, that was what, an hour, 2 hour. I don't think you had slept for like a day and a half or something. And, but you stayed up late and connected with me. It was so meaningful and valuable to me. And then, Natalie, our Zoom conversations, we've had a few already now, have been similarly amazing and really incredible.
Yes.
And I've read your content that you were able to share with me. And I'm like,
Yes.
how can we, it's so life-giving for me. How can we replicate that process, that experience for others so they can connect? Because again, I know so many people that would come with what you just did or say, hey, by the way, I've done this for 10 years. Let me tell you what I've learned. Like, so valuable. So we don't waste 10 years and be like, oh, Scott, I just figured that thing out that he was talking about 10 years ago. Man, I wish I would have listened, And again, that may be someone's
Yes.
process, but this goes back to the not reinventing the wheel versus moving forward.
Right. So I just want to respond, Luke. Thank you for this comment about Erez. Erez, I really love the notion of increasing wellness and looking at illness in the Ensoulment perspective, because see, we're talking about perspectives. Through the Ensoulment perspectives, all realities are valid, all realities are true, all realities are good, beautiful, and they exist. Now I talk about the arising of realities, either functioning or not, functioning for the benefit or this or that. So there's realities. So there you can see bubbles of realities all around us. And what we're doing as a vessel, you are a vessel, Luke is a vessel, I'm a vessel. And I explain what are vessels. I don't want to go into it. But basically, the way I see it, this is a subscription-based universe, which means all realities are okay, functioning or not, devoid of any appearances or full of waves in the ocean. All realities are valid. It's about so there's a relationship between your vessel, the experiences you're having as a vessel, the realities you are creating and the realities you are interacting with and affecting, okay? So it's a fascinating process. And I just started the journey. It's just been a few years, okay? Now, the reason I'm saying this, I believe that the reality, wellness or reality is that which functions. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Like Luke said, it's a great beginning. Let's look at functioning. What is functioning? Who wants to increase what? Do I want to increase the functioning of the COVID-19 in my body? Like, it's fascinating, okay? So, but I feel like, so one thought I had all the time is that it's already happening. This conversation, like between the Erezes, the Lukes, the Natalies of the world, is already happening through the internet, through research, through universities, through conferences, through retreats that your friend is now organizing, the leadership retreat in Puerto Rico, which looks amazing, by the way. So it's already happening. Different ways of being, of knowing, of experiences are interacting with each other all the time, if we want or if we don't want. The question is, and that's the question I'm posing, because I love, Luke, how practical you are. You're like, listen, why don't we start with the database? Who's doing what? Why don't we start with a 3-minute video of who are you? What are you up to? Where are you headed? Like, very simple, 3 minutes, because really, I mean, like you mentioned, there's millions of amazing people on the planet that I would love. And some of them resonate more or less with my reality. Some of them are attractive more or less to my reality. Some of them maybe can can co-create. So how do we create this meeting place? So you can say, well, Natalie, there's already a meeting place. There's the internet. It's a meeting place. Go Google consciousness reality. You'll find your people. Go, I was at the Science of Consciousness conference in Arizona a few times. I was speaking here. I mean, you could meet your people anywhere you want, okay? So the question is, from my perspective, everything is already existing, yet there is a way to make it better, that there's a greater levels of wellness, okay, of our consciousness, our wakefulness, our spiritual embodied wakefulness. There's room for improvement. Why do I say that? I mean, look at the pandemic. Look at what happened the last 2 years. I mean, I don't want to start judging it and analyzing it, but what I can see from how the whole world functioned, first of all, that in a very short time, within 3, 4, 5 weeks, everybody were on the same page. This is the governance system. This is the medical response. This is this is the social distancing. So we responded as a species very quickly, okay, to this threat. And unfortunately, fear bring us together the best, like no other thing, but did we really respond to the pandemic in kind of high levels of wellness or high levels of consciousness? I don't know, because in a way, I'm just giving an example. What if we could actually really talk with the so-called virus? What if we could actually talk to it, say, okay, what's up, what's going on, what if we could actually see what humanity is going through? Like maybe it's an initiation. I don't know. I'm not saying like, sweet and sugarcoating things, but what I'm saying is, with different perspectives, talking with each other about a phenomena that's arising collectively, there's a much, much, much higher level of intelligence that right now we're not doing. We're just defaulting to what the systems know. Medical system, they know only one thing, which is the medical system, okay? You look at the Buddhist Lama or think people who can levitate, it's like, hello, how can we bring their way of knowing into this collective conscious so we can tackle real things? So I really like the practical spirituality or the practicality of what we're doing. So I'm just going to pause and allow you to respond or share whatever.
Luke, did you want to, or should I?
I would love for you to. I'm actually quite curious. I think that's a great example. The virus, from a certain perspective, has an intention to function, which is to replicate, and it's doing its thing. And it goes through its series of evolutions where it becomes, more virulent, but maybe less deadly. And, there's all these things that we've studied or whatever. And I as an example, I would love for you to comment on that if you don't mind, because I think it would be a really practical thing where you could possibly say billions of people in the world today that are confused about this, going, what's going on? And I love your series, What the F is Going On? I love that cuss word in there. It's like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. And I feel like you're accurately attaching to that shared angst of uncertainty and fear and worry. And especially when people who've lost loved ones, or like people have died that I care about, and they're connecting it to this thing. And then other people are saying, I've gotten it a bunch of times, I'm totally fine. Why is everyone restricting my ability to function when I'm fine? And I have no fear whatsoever. And yet I'm being told I have to be afraid. And I'm being told I have to inflict fear on my kids who are not afraid either, who've also had it and have been fine. So great example of, is there a way, even just between the two of us here, but what if it was 5 people, 10 people, 15 people that all have these really deeply thought through, I've spent time on this, I've written books, read books, I've really, they just open their mouth and you're like, oh, they know what's up, to share on something like this that could directly impact someone's sense of well-being and how they navigate through life in uncertainty like we're dealing with now.
Well, I can certainly speak to viruses and COVID and what's going on. So let's talk about viruses. Viruses are merely instructions that are utilizing existing frameworks in order to self-replicate. So this is true for all types of viruses, whether they're biological, cellular viruses, whether they're computer viruses, whether they're viruses in the nervous system. Fear is a type of virus. It's a bunch of instructions in the nervous system that exist to self-replicate. Okay, so which is the greater threat? The virus of fear or the virus of COVID-19, or the virus of COVID-19, Omicron subsection BA2. I mean, like, there are so many different variants that naturally evolve because of the machinery and operability of life. So let's talk about where this came from. So, what is the major lesson that is being presented to us? Because it's important for us to really become aware of the truth that we are multicellular beings, right? We consist of microbiomes of wide varieties, large numbers of microorganisms that are mostly cooperating most of the time. And that we are the equivalent of cells in the bodies of larger organisms. We're the equivalent of microorganisms in the microbiomes of much larger organisms. One of those being our Mother Earth. And our Mother Earth is very much alive in the same way that you and I are more powerful and more knowledgeable, more intelligent than any given cell in our bodies. Our Mother Earth is also more intelligent, more powerful, more knowledgeable than any given human being or even species. And so we have basically been acting as a bacterial infection on the skin of our Mother Earth. It's more or less the case. Bacterial mat is a little bit more accurate. And so we have basically been doing this, and we have been extracting her body fat, which is what fossil fuels are, burning it, polluting her respiratory system, which is what the climate, what the air is, and polluting her circulatory system, which is what the water system is, and littering basically all the stuff throughout her body. This is, of course, toxic. If the bacteria in your skin and on your body were doing the same thing to you, you would be very ill. And it makes sense that you would apply some medicine to this bacteria to get it to calm the fricker down, like they cooperate, be part of a healthy ecosystem. Come on, work it, right? So that's what we would do if we were intelligent human beings dealing with bacterial infection. And that's basically what our mother's done with COVID and the series of COVID-related coronavirus infections. And there's a whole bunch of other things that are tied to this. But basically, she's been having a lot of difficulty breathing because we've been basically destroying so much of the parts of the living infrastructure that allows for respiration. Okay, we have been doing this and causing her to have significant breathing problems. It's pretty obvious. This is a very clear message. This is what it's like to have difficulty breathing. You may die as a result. Please be aware of what you're doing because you are part of me. All right, I'm your mother. I love you, but you're killing me. So this is, it's not merely an enemy. And there's this constant notion,
Right.
Gosh, in the media and in science and in politics and all over the place, it's all about fighting the enemy, waging war.
Right.
We combat COVID, fight climate change. You can't fight climate change. It's not an enemy that you can fight. It's climate destabilization. We're destabilizing the body of our Mother Earth, and we are the ones that are doing it. It's
Erez,
not.
Erez, I want to ask you for a minute. I'm interrupting you. So
yes.
I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, and I'm in agreement, 100% agreement with you. Now, see, so let's, and I actually like the idea that we're putting COVID in our center. Okay, so here's COVID arises. They identified out of a lab, so-called a virus. Now you have ways of knowing, perspectives. Like, look at this beautiful perspective that I completely am aligned with you, 100%. Okay, and there's additional perspectives. So imagine we are the leaders of the world, spiritual leaders, political leaders, technology leaders. It doesn't matter. We are here to bring something to ourselves, to our families, and to the people. And now we have all these ways of knowing. You know how in the shamanic traditions, they have council, right? They sit together and they counsel, they meditate, they cry, they send people to the desert, they come back. So there's a way to deal with something that arises that is posing a threat. So I'm questioning, I'm asking you, I'm asking Luke, and I'm asking us, what is So what I'm interested in, what I'm really interested in is how these ways of knowing, how this perspective that you just introduced right now, how could that serve actuality? How could that serve systems, processes, functioning of the human race? How could it do that? So that's my question, because we're in agreement here. We're in agreement, and even if we bring a virologist right now to the conversation, I'm in complete agreement with him, because he or she, they are talking from their lens, which is completely, I hear them, okay? They're looking at, okay, that's a threat, we're gonna die, my grandmother's gonna die, It's fine. The issue here is not to actually to decide who's right and who's wrong. I believe what we are called, what I am feeling called, is to bring another layer of understanding, of insight, of perspectives, another layer that includes, transcends, and really is practical. How do we take these ways of knowing in a way that could serve, let's say, the COVID-19 governance, earthly governance? Let's say you bring all of the big nations together and they decide, they have like a protocol, and they decide, what tools do we give them? Okay, and how? Okay, that's
if I could use I want to go back to Erez Ascher. If I could use a real, I think, real practical example. I just saw a video of what's going on in Canada, and these truckers, doing this big, gigantic, freedom, thing they're doing. So they're clearly upset with how it's been handled, and they feel that their ability to function is decreasing. And then to kind of contrast, so I was thinking of one of the most clear-cut examples is, do you get vaccinated or not? Do you wear a mask or not? And the quality of the mask to actually do what it's intending to do. All these kind of things relate to, we put together policies, national policies, and certain governments are going this way or that way. And then you have, as a contrast to both of those, you have, and I'll use an example which is somewhat tragic, but I've heard maybe one or more stories of a highly religious leader, maybe a pastor, who's very adamantly, this isn't, a thing you need to worry about. God's going to protect you. Don't get the vaccine. Don't wear the mask. And then they die. And that becomes a media frenzy of like, wow, here's this person who really strongly believed in their worldview. And their worldview said, you don't have to do these things. And then they died. And then people are like, well, I'll use that as a counterexample. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And so even if I could imagine, if someone took this beautiful example of like Hermetic principles and all that stuff, I mean, Erez, what you said was amazing. And it brought clarity to me, and I really like it. It's beautiful. I think there are certain people that would just be like, so do I wear a mask or not? Do I get vaccinated or not? Based on everything you just said, Mother Earth, if me getting vaccinated, does that help you breathe better? I don't know. And so like, I love that we're thinking about practical application of these incredibly important clarifying things. Because I think for some of us, it's very clarifying. It's very like, oh, wow, now I know how on the larger scale, as it is below, so it is below, as below, so is above, like the idea that we could maybe fix some of these things, and these which kind of take care of themselves in a sense, right? That's my current view. Like if we started to be like, oh, to fix COVID, start fixing the waterways and the air quality and like, heal Mother Earth a little bit, and all of a sudden these things won't be so prevalent. Like that makes perfect sense to us. We're all nodding our heads yes, but other people would be like, and so figuring out a way to kind of do the for dummies version in a way that's like, okay, cool, but still, I like, do I force my kids to wear a mask in their school or not? Like, I still need to know what to do there,
I think you've touched upon something which is very important, especially at this time in our evolution, because there's this continuing misperception that there is the right way and the wrong way. Okay,
yes,
and if I know what the right way is, if I just get an A on the test, then I can, everything's great. And if I don't, then I'm going to be punished in some way. And so this mentality is left over from the Industrial Revolution. It's not accurate. It's actually very misleading. The need about when to wear a mask, when to take vaccination, what kind of vaccination, what schedule, what amount, all these things are variables. Okay, they are based upon things which change over time and are dependent on the context, the environment that you're in. So there is no one size fits all answer, which is very frustrating to people who are used to having the right answer coming from some sort of authority figure. And then when that doesn't
Yes.
happen, they get the answer, and they're like, but you said this, and I did. Like, they go into their childishness, and they haven't learned. The lesson is a bigger lesson than this. It's a much bigger lesson, which is sort of why I went, it's pretty big in my earlier
It's beautiful.
explanation, versus addressing these questions like, well, should I put a mask on or not? Well, it depends, is the answer. Let's find out information about where you're at. What's the situation with the child? What's the situation with the environment? Where's the, the viral load of the environment that you're in? What is the likelihood that you're going to be interacting with the people? And then we can consider from all these things, okay, is this impingement upon your freedom to function worthwhile, because it's going to actually increase the ability of everyone to function? If it is, then put on the mask for now. If it's not, then don't. But it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. It's going to actually require awareness, conscious awareness of what's going on in you, around you, in your environment.
Yes.
Something that is part of the lesson that we are here to learn right now.
Yes. Yes.
So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think it's a great example of where, so I'll just tell a little more of my backstory for context, why I find this so valuable. I had a very kind of somewhat dogmatic religious framework for most of my life. And it was very much that. It was like, there's angels and demons, there's good, there's bad. Like, it's very clear, and I agree. It's this very industrialized society, kind of like either the factory functions and products come out the other side, or it doesn't. It's very binary in its thinking. And I'm now kind of recognizing, like, okay, maybe that's not the best framework for these things. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, I'm a little bit stuck in that kind of morality framework. Even when we use the idea of increasing the ability to function, it implies a goal, an outcome, a desired state, which then to me implies we're going to take the proper steps that are more effective and efficient, and also value, other things such as time scale. And, there's many, many dimensionalities to it, of course, is how we measure it. But just the idea that there's a preferred state, therefore there might be actions we could take that would be preferable to others to reaching the preferred state. And that's where I think about, this is where I come into the practicality of saying, if there was no, I would just sit back and be like, it doesn't matter what we do, because it all goes the same place, good, bad, black, white, increasing ability to function, decreasing ability to function. It's all simulation anyway. And there are people that have taken this nihilistic almost route to just say, hey, I'm not real, you're not real. So, hey, there's things that might be important or not. And sure, pleasure's nice over pain, but, and I just, I want to tease it out a little bit to kind of go, okay, if we're actually saying, hey, you know what, like a whole bunch of people dying and suffering in pain who maybe didn't need to, maybe that's not the best thing. But from a larger perspective, if those people are harming Mother Earth, for example, it's like, well, I'm killing a bunch of organisms when I put on an ointment, is that okay for the greater function of this ecosystem, And so thinking about these kind of things, like, it's really complicated because then you get to like the anti-natalists and stuff. They're like, oh, we'll kill all the humans.
Look. I actually don't think it's complicated. It's not. I love Erez's response. In every moment, you have an impulse to do the next right thing for yourself, for your kids, for your neighborhood, for your business. You have an impulse. Now, that impulse, of course, is affected by many, many environmental, but what Erez talked about, this wakeful awareness, this wakeful consciousness that each one of us must develop, this is what I'm talking about, to develop this individually, relationally, collectively, so we can actually move this evolution to where it wants to go. Okay, so it's actually not complex. The complexity comes from the brain and comes from which is it's actually a healthy function. The brain has a healthy function of discernment, of judging, of I want, no, I don't, this, more of this, less than this, more illness, less function. I mean, it's healthy. But what I want to say is it's actually not complex, because look at the natural world. Okay, there's a tremendous amount of complexity, but it's not so complex. It's actually incredibly attuned and present and aware. And look how forests grow, look how organisms grow. But I want to take us back, because we could make it like another mental exercise between us, but I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question, how could we create a tool, a practical way, so we can actually expand, deepen, elevate consciousness and understanding the mechanism, את המנגנון ואת התהליך, the process and the structure of how things come into being. Because when you actually are in tune with that, you don't even have to get in tune with it mentally. You can have a sense for it. Yeah, that feels, yeah, let's go here. So like an amoeba, that's like one cell organism. They're like, we're gonna go here, no, we're gonna do, and they've been surviving here much longer than we do. Okay, so what am I trying to say? I'm curious about, and I'm taking us back to the database, I'm taking us back to the platform, to a tool that can serve the same way technology serves. It serves us right now to communicate like this, even though I must tell you, if technology would not have been there, we could, Erez, you and I, could have developed a way to communicate psychically all of our ideas. We could do that, but we're not doing it. We're kind of lazy. We're using GPS instead of understanding the moon, the constellation, the sun. Oh, it's here, so that's west. We're not doing it anymore. We used to, okay? So we could, everything technology does, we can do it better. I'm sorry, we could, but we're not practicing. We're not doing it every day. So we're kind of dumbing us ourselves, okay? So my question is, what kind of tool can really elevate our consciousness, can elevate, can open, and it doesn't have to take 50 years in a monastery in Tibet, okay? You can awaken like this. Like, I know I had it, Erez had it, you had it, okay? So my question is, the red pill, the blue pill, and all this, how can we awaken so people can pop, so governments can pop, can say, yeah, oh my God, Mother Earth is my mom. I'm a virus on her. I'm like exterminating her. Of course she would behave like this with tsunamis and with fires and global So, but this requires an awakening. So my question is, what can we create? What kind of database? What kind of different ways of knowing? What kind of developing intuitive, psychic, spiritual insights? I'm not sure. I'm asking you. I'm asking us. What could we develop so it can actually serve? Like the internet is serving, because think about it. The internet is bringing all of us together. How many billion people on the planet using it? Okay. And it's serving. There was internet 1.0, 2.0, now there's 3.0, which we haven't talked about at all. So it is showing us our interconnectedness. It is showing us how each one of us is a server. There's a TCP, there's a communication protocol where My question is, what is the next level? So if the internet is showing us this, could we use technology? Maybe it's another way. They've tried oneness meditation. They've tried all this intentionality to reduce crime and harm in like meditating on a place. And there is significant, like if you analyze it statistically, there was significant reduction, like a number that is significantly, you can ignore it when people meditated or prayed for and so forth. I also want to say something about death that you mentioned earlier. Who said that death is bad? Who said that illness is bad? Who said that harm is bad? Okay, so we need to reframe and understand in much more holistic way. And then how could we develop something or bring something or offer something to the world? Because this is what I see. So people can wake up and can make their own decision. What should they do for themselves, for their children, for their partners, for their communities? It's really a choice with many parameters, but you deciding, do I want to vaccinate? No. Am I afraid of the virus? No. Am I afraid to die? No. Okay, maybe I should do this. Like, but everybody can have their own discussion with their own navigation system. Okay. So the question, I'm coming back, what's the database, or what is this technology or this thing that can be helpful? I'm asking that.
So I'd like to, you both have raised a number of varied questions that I'd like to respond to and address. And I want to first of all say that it is both complex and not complex, in the sense that the first principles are underlying the complexity are themselves very simple. And then what happens is then when they get iterated infinitely, you get infinite complexity. And so when you attempt to view systems or living beings that are highly complex from a sort of a top-down perspective, it's like, how can I fix this as if it was a machine, right? Then it becomes so complicated, like, I don't know what to do. Okay. But first of all, I'd like to address some of the things that you touched on, Luke, with regards to having a goal, with the notion that, okay, well, there's the goal. And I would say that different people have different goals. All right. The issue that we need to address is not to have the right goal, because that brings us back to the other problem we're having, is to have a common direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's just a matter of having the direction of growth versus the direction of diminishment.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a direction of evolving into maturity instead of devolving into immaturity, you're able to, as an organism, act more maturely, which is what is required in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what the fundamental, transition that's needed. And also with regards to this notion of usefulness and utilitarian aspects, it goes back to the same topic, because usefulness is always relative to something. Useful to whom? Useful to what? In what context? Right? So wellness goes beyond utility. It's not utilitarian, because it's not about any person's perspective on what is useful or what is not useful. It is about increasing the functionality of the organism that we are, okay, versus decreasing it. We've already done that as human beings. We've decreased our ability to function in many ways. We have actually made our lives much simpler today than they used to be. If you go to like deep into the Amazon or to other places where you still have indigenous peoples that are living in indigenous ways that are not relying upon fossil fuels, you will see that their interactions with the world are much, much more complicated than yours and mine. They're much more complicated than the internet. They're much more complicated than any DAO, DAC, or anything like this. Okay, they are tuning into this stuff. They are, they've developed their own sense of I don't want to say technology, but to address what Natalie was saying.
It's technology, yes.
It's an approach, an interaction with what is present, what is real, in a way which is far richer than what you and I are experiencing right now.
Right.
Now, okay, that's all good and well. And now let's talk about the sense of also the practicality of this, because I've been speaking about so much large picture stuff, and then there's this notion of, okay, should my kid wear the mask or not? Should he take the vaccine or not? And while there is that complexity about what is the situation, what am I being aware of, what's the environment like, and being aware of, okay, there is a potential threat here, okay. Then the question becomes, how do I interact with potential threat? Do I operate in fear? Do I contract? Do I view it as an enemy that I need to fight? I need to fight this, okay? Or do I handle this more, let's say, elegantly, or with a greater degree of knowledge? Because if you're a martial arts master and somebody comes and attacks you, you are not going into fear mode. You're not going into, right? There's none of that sort of resistance, because, all right, I understand what to do. And then they're on their ass. Okay, good. And so we have that ability to deal with threats without going into fear. And that is then tying into, I believe, Natalie's question about what to do, because fundamentally what is necessary to do is not so much about doing as it is about being aware of what is the state of my being. Am I contracting? Am I viewing something as a threat? Am I contracting in fear? Because if I do that, what I'm doing is I'm lessening my awareness of myself and the situation, the environment around me. When people go into fear states, they're contracting their nervous system, reducing the flow of information available to them. They're doing the exact opposite of what these highly intelligent indigenous peoples are doing.
Yes.
And we, therefore, need to learn to do the opposite, to open. Okay, so what is that? What does that look like? What does that feel like? It feels like love. That's what it feels like. When you're opening your heart and you're opening, it's like, okay, I understand the world. We're going through some challenges. Thank you for showing me. Thank you, Mother Earth, for showing me that you are in such pain, that you are actually being threatened by my behavior, by my actions. I am taking this into account in my day-to-day life and how I'm showing up for myself and for other people. And I am I'm being awake, I'm no longer going to rely upon the right answer from an authority in order to know what to do. I'm going to open my heart to love myself and others, both directly and indirectly. If that requires for me to be putting on a mask now, I will put on the mask. If that requires a vaccination, I will take the vaccination. If it requires me to honor my sovereignty, honor the sovereignty of my body, that I have more right to say what I'm willing to do to my body than any government, then I will go to Ottawa and protest. All these things are inherently valid. They are different ways of the organism that we are learning the lessons it needs to learn at high speed.
Yes.
We are learning collectively faster than we have ever learned before.
Yes.
Growing pains are called growing pains for a reason. They're not comfortable. It's unpleasant. Okay. And how to address Natalie's question, how to facilitate this process, because the process is already occurring without our having this conversation. All right. Humanity is awakening and it's learning faster than ever before because it has no choice. That's what we have collectively decided to do, not just, you and I, or at the UN or something. This is the organism that is humanity has decided to choose life in wellness over death and illness. It has chosen this, but the same way that someone who's morbidly obese has decided to go and become healthy, there's inertia. There's stuff to learn. There's things to overcome in terms of old habits that are harmful. We have to get ourselves off of our addiction to fossil fuels ASAP. This is true, regardless of what anybody wants to believe. Their belief structures, all of this, it doesn't matter. Reality is real, regardless of anyone's beliefs about reality. Anyone's ideas and all the things, because we create webs of meaning. This also ties into something that Natalie brought up earlier. We create webs of meaning that are interrelated, and they facilitate cooperative behaviors that allow us to create things collectively that are vastly more complicated than anything that you and I can create as individuals.
Yes, I want to pause and highlight that point. That I think is a great statement for why there's value in bringing certain people together who are thinking about such things. Because as that acceleration happens, I kind of think of it like, okay, here, imagine it this way. And the front is accelerating really fast. And the back's like, whoa, trying to catch up. And you can get this elongated, stretching tension that creates wealth inequality, that creates, intelligence inequality. That's another big thing, like where people are, I think, the joke we often hear among smart people is like, imagine, the average human on the planet, and then imagine half the people are stupider than that. And then recognizing, how do we build solutions for that category of people who can't articulate and process at the speed with which us three are processing. And that's just a fact about our cognitive abilities and what we've researched and this and the other. And there are people, and I'm reminded of this, those who are like social workers and work with people in the homeless, and they're like, look, you have to understand their ability to cognitively be aware is much, much lower than yours. So your solutions and ideas, the crypto and blockchain, just don't even resonate because they're just like barely aware of what, compared to some of these other things. And so I think it's a beautiful example to say the more diversity we have, like, for example, how do we build a consciousness evolution process? This is kind of like, what we're describing, this humanity's, get on board, it's happening, for the person who's working 3 jobs and is a single mother and is barely trying to sleep and eat healthy and has very little time for self-introspection and awareness and things like that. They're not spending an hour meditating or whatever, right? So that's a great example of the more diversity we bring into the conversation, I think the more ability we'll have with the speed of what's already going on, saying, okay, we can either stumble through it and bruise our toe, or we can be like, hey, that wasn't so bad. It was kind of painful, but hey, I'm figuring it out as I go. That's I think when I talk about goals or I talk about intentions, it's yes, I recognize a lot of it's vestiges of my old worldview that I'm still processing through and filtering out of. I also think there's something there that is it's valuable in the conversation in terms of a practicality and pragmatic nature to like, hey, we can be stupid or smart. Let's try to be smart. That kind of a thing.
Look, I want to respond, and I don't know how long do we have, but I want to say a couple things. So
Actually, I think I'm actually supposed to be in another meeting right now.
I know, that's why, because
No,
I saw
actually,
the
no, actually,
schedule.
I'm good until 11:30 myself.
Okay, so look, everybody has the capacity to awaken. Doesn't matter if you're a gas trucker or if you're a mother that's working 3 jobs, So it's not so much has to do with everybody has the capacity to awaken now, number one. Number two, if somebody is working 3 jobs and scrambling to even eat healthy and so like Erez said earlier, it's a case by case. You got to look at it, and there's a way to look and support the person to move, to gear, to direct themselves toward a life that's really working for them. Okay, it's clear that if somebody's eating McDonald's all day, it's okay to eat it once in a while. But if you're eating that every day, it's very clear that you're taxing your body, and at some point you'll be very, very sick. Okay, now, so there's a way to support, to give the person an environment in which they can redirect their life so they can really be attuned with their true journey. Because if you are in fear, that's not the truth. I mean, it can be an experience that arises, but it's not really the truth of who you are. If you're crumbling because you're stressed and there's so many projects and you can barely breathe and you can barely eat something on the way while you drive, hey, that's not the truth. That's not your truth. Unless you're choosing it because it makes you happy or makes you feel good. Okay, so there's a way to redirect people, communities, governments to the places that feels right for them in the moment. Like we said at the beginning, there's no right and wrong as a general. Right now, this is the next right thing to do for me. Like Erez said, maybe to protect others, maybe I need a vaccine right now, maybe I need to put my mask, maybe not, maybe my own sovereignty. So it's the right thing every moment. It's a moment by moment arising. Now, this is not something complex to awaken in people, okay? And I'm asking, I love what you said, Erez, at the end. You said, we created webs of meanings. Mm-hmm. And then you said, what did you say? To create interconnectedness. I don't know, but it was beautiful sentence. I didn't take the whole sentence.
To facilitate cooperative behavior is what I wrote down, because I'm taking notes as well. To facilitate cooperative behavior.
Thank you.
Just nuggets that are beautiful.
Okay, great. So to create, to facilitate cooperative behavior, beautiful. So now look, I'm interested in, if we're talking about awakening, if we're talking about more spirituality, more meaning, more depth, more wellness, more well-being, okay? I believe we are in time in history when enough people together, the same way we mapped the whole world, these people invented Waze and Google Maps and all this, they mapped the whole world, every little alley in Costa Rica, in this, you know where it is, and they created a mechanism to do that. If we can map the whole world, if we can search for something within milliseconds, you get 10,000 results, there's a way to solve it. I am convinced, and now it's not something to be solved, but if we can create this web of meaning to facilitate cooperative behavior that brings us to wellness, that brings us to life-affirming behavior and practices and food, and maybe love is at the source of it. Now, love and peace, it's not so woo-woo, and it's not so, to love is such a sophisticated thing. It's way, way more sophisticated than thinking. It's because loving requires knowing all perspectives and being in affinity with others and being like having empathy and compassion and understanding that we're all one. So there's way more to that. So I'm thinking maybe it's love operating system, okay? So what I'm reflecting out loud with you is, I believe we can help. I believe we can serve the same way the internet served us, the same way Google Maps serves us, the same way crypto serves us. I believe there's a way we could serve. We could serve the global wellness. And my question is, where do we start? What do we start with? Do we need even to do anything? Maybe you say, okay, well, don't worry, it's going to happen by itself. Maybe, but maybe we could serve in a way because it excites me. That's all. That's the only reason. It really makes me happy to speak with like-minded people that want to do something similar, to create webs of meanings that facilitate cooperative behavior for the wellness of the whole. That in it for itself is like, whoa, yeah, ahead, bring it on. It's exciting. So that's my question. What is needed that's not there? What is needed?
And if I can just pause and highlight that again too, I love that. That's such a great framing for why are we doing anything? Because it makes us excited. We get out of bed and our bodies respond like, yeah. Like I'm literally thinking about, my career and the things that I work on. And I'm like, I do them because of that reason. And my whole life, I've always been live life on purpose. Don't work a job you hate. Don't dread the Monday and party, live for the weekends. Like, spend your life on something you enjoy and increases the ability to function. Right. And I'm feeling that the more and more I connect on this plane, and I'm recognizing that, like, me personally, I describe it as this is that which I can't not do. My son made fun of me the other day when he's like, Dad, that just sounds like guru language. That's silly. I'm like, well, I phrase it that way because it makes sense in my own head. It helps me think through what I'm doing. It's like, what are the things that I can't not do? I just have to do them because they're just so life-giving and fulfilling. And then I recognize that I'm not unique. I've connected to enough people that feel the same way, that I want to facilitate that feeling, that experience. And then at the same time, bonus, the added benefit is it seems to lead to more increasing the ability to function on multiple levels, including the planet itself, including cosmology, including all these other things. So, Erez, you were about to respond. Thank you.
I'll just point out that my first book, I could not write it. Okay, I totally get it. Totally understand.
Yeah, and this is like Jed McKenna and like other spiritual leaders. They say the same thing. They're like, look, I'm not doing this because I feel like there's some directed evolution goal to the universe or whatever. They're just like, it's dharma. It's the thing I can't not do. I have to do it. Like, and hey, cool. If other people benefit from it, it's confirmation that, yeah, this is what I was supposed to do. So I feel like there's something that's coming together. I haven't been able to spend any of my personal time on this yet, other than a couple of calls we've had. But I want to kind of organize the spreadsheet that we have so far, create a form, put in some more entries that I know of. warriorsage.com is an amazing example. I was just thinking of during this conversation. Satyen has an amazing community there. They do regular Zoom calls and stuff, like whole gigantic group of people. And there are many others. There's a Discord, I think you sent me the link to, Natalie, that I joined as well, which has all these. I just briefly started reading through some of the Discord conversations there. There's so many people that are excited about this. And for me, I think one of the things would be not so much, replicating the Warrior Sage community database or this other Discord data. It's just saying that database exists. Here's a quick summary of the type of people you might find in that database. Here's maybe some, examples, some, maybe 5 or 10 or half a dozen people or a dozen people from that community that represent that community. Say, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is what we're up to. And then just so people can find each other. Because I think there's so many people that would just, they would love to be part of a conversation like this and know that other people are thinking about this and giving them eventually tools that they're looking for wherever they're at so they can participate in their own experience. And I just, that excites me. I get excited about seeing that, facilitating that to me as something that I personally want. I think it's a way to confirm, this is the right direction.
Mm-hmm. So I'm questioning, Erez, can I ask you something? If you were to be given all the resources, the time, and you already are an established spiritual leader, and you have your, your influence, your impact, you're already there. Mm-hmm. And you were to actually choose a project or choose a venture, would you choose anything? Would you do anything? And what would that be?
Great question. So I will say that it turns out that tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of my putting out the Soterian Guide, which basically answers this question. And so I would say that, I've been working on this, what you've been talking about. I've been working on this for 4 years. And I have a number of different approaches that I have pursued, seeing sort of where are people willing to really, put some effort into this, because what I was seeing was that it was too early for a lot of people. They weren't there yet in their growth pattern. They weren't there in their learning. They weren't there yet. And so I've been preparing for them to be there. and working on facilitating people to be well enough in themselves to actually cooperate effectively to create wellness at the larger scales. So if I was to pick one thing, I think the most effective one would still be Seraviva, even though I haven't touched the thing in like a year and a half. Seraviva.
Say more.
SERAVIVA.com. It's basically an idea that I had 2 years ago with regards to how to address the need to restructure human civilization, because our infrastructure right now throughout the entire world, it needs to be completely replaced. And most people are not aware of this, but it needs to be completely replaced for one primary reason, which is that it's based entirely on fossil fuels. And so when you go off fossil fuels, everything about the power distribution, energy utilization, resource distribution, resource utilization, it all changes. It's no longer centralized, it's decentralized. That's one of the reasons all this work is now being done on DAOs and DACs, is to figure out how to deal with governance that's distributed, and it's tied very much to what I've been working on for the past couple of years. So the notion is that there needs to be an on-ramp, a means of transition to address what Luke was mentioning, which is basically all these people are working these jobs that they don't really, it's not even sensible that they're overworking themselves and pushing themselves like this. The only reason is that we have created a system which manufactures poverty. It creates poverty in a sea of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's necessary to change this on the ground, not just with words. Because I can talk all day long, and, all night too, right? It's not going to help that much. It's a matter of, okay, now, next step, let's see about how we can get people to cooperate effectively to create something that's going to replace the existing system without destroying its benefits, because people don't want to have a downgrade in their lifestyle, right? People want to have an upgrade. And how do you do that when people are used to having cheap energy that's being created from burning fossil fuels? And so they're used to like having these big houses and heating them up, with poor insulation in the midst of winter, and then driving for 30 miles in this big SUV. It's insane. The amount of energy wasted for basic daily tasks in the Western world is incredible. And it all needs to change, because when you're dealing with renewable systems, renewable energy structures, because even the transition for the industrial world to be able to still survive a little bit is still, like, even fusion energy and so on, it's going to take a very long time, decades to outfit everything. So most of the energy structure is going to be decentralized no matter what. We cannot avoid it. And that, combined with the amount of damage that's going to result from the floods and the droughts and all these things, the entire structure of human civilization is going to need to be changing very rapidly over the next 20 years. So I was very much aware of this, 4 years ago. And so I've been working on how to do this. I'd say Seraviva is the most practical application I've come up with, and I need help. So yeah, that'll be it.
I think it's awesome, because it's another great example of what we could potentially collectively do together, which is amazing programs, been worked on for many, many years. Seraviva.com, there you go. There's an example. And I need help. That statement. You did something recently, Erez, that was so incredibly beautiful. And from my perspective, you came out on Facebook and you said, I need help. And you recognize, even as, and this is, I think, is an example. It's the antidote. This is so beautiful. This is the antidote to the problem we face of looking to the authority. Because the great guru, spiritual leader, of course, they don't need help. They're perfect. How could they? They're glowing in their white robes, floating above the meditation mat. How could they possibly need anything from anyone? Because they're disconnected from this, silly physical matter reality. And yet, you're demonstrating, I think, the type of leadership that we need to say, I am got it all figured out. I need help. I'm not as focused on the mass marketing of my ideas. I'm not as focused on the business aspects of it, and I frankly don't come alive dealing with that stuff. So I need to find the people who do, are excited about what I'm about, and can co-create with me. And it's such a great example of where if we even knew what's one being done, and then two, what's missing from what's being done, what help is needed. So I think we just highlighted another great practical component of what we want to put in the database. What help do you need? And this is actually just reminding me of, oh, wow, this is funny. This is reminding me of an experience I had with Brock at Burning Man. There's a bunch of people around at Red Lightning Camp, and it was like, what's your superpower? What is it you're doing in the world? And what do you need? And that was, we just went around there and we did that every day, throughout the whole burn. And we collected a whole spreadsheet. We have all this data we collected, and then it kind of like didn't go anywhere. And it's funny, I'm actually thinking like, well, there's a whole bunch of examples of people that would be super excited about something like this. Just reactivating that list to be like, hey, by the way, you've all been at it, here's another example of where this stuff's coming together. So very, very cool, Erez. Thank you. I think that's a great example of, look, here's this cool thing I'm doing, been working on it for 4 years. I need help. And then if we can replicate that across the board, and not only that, I think we are, and I've already kind of played around with this a little bit with the still contingent. There are people going, hey, I've got time, energy, intention. I'd like to get paid a little bit. I mean, I need to support my family, but I want to do something that matters. I don't want to just work a job I hate. Who can engage me and say, you're valuable, come and connect with us and help provide value of what we're missing. That I've seen people come alive just in the last, a few months that I've been doing this experiment of this Stoke contingent kind of group of people. So I think we're going to be facilitating that type of thing. People that come in and say, okay, I want to look at the database, get those little quick summaries of who's doing what. And then, oh, wow, and what are their needs? Marketing. I know how to do marketing, or, oh, they need, coding and development. We can connect them with some developers. And from that perspective, I feel like it becomes very practical. And that might be a really great way for someone to say, hey, like a great example, you're the single mom who's like you beautifully said, Natalie, I so want to believe what you said is true, that anyone can, awaken. And I'm restricted by my own concerns that maybe I'm privileged. And that's why, Maslow's hierarchy, I'm way up at the top of self-actualization because I have all my other needs taken care of. So that, that's been my life story in a sense, that I want to be careful about that assumption. I believe it. I love it. I want it to be true, but I'm going to be careful about it. But a great example would be, hey, drop into that person. You can add value by evaluating what we did. Is it useful for you? Does it relate to you? Does it connect with where your life experience is right now? Just like you were saying, sometimes you're too fat, you're too ahead of where people are at. So even the people that are there, I think, can add tremendous value to what we're doing by saying, oh yeah, I've got, 5 minutes between my kids screaming to like check into it. Okay, yeah, that's cool. That helped me. All right, on to my day, that kind of thing. So super, super awesome, super cool. Any last thoughts? Or I figure we've covered so much here, and I want to, again, keep it practical. I'm going to try to work on the spreadsheet to clarify a little bit, put a nice form on it so people can add entries to the spreadsheet that links to the spreadsheet, so they don't have to, put duplicates in there. So that way, we don't have to control who's adding what. There should probably be some type of review process. So there'll be like the raw data tab, and then there'll be like probably the data tab that you, me, others, as we start to kind of grow the people that care about this, like we talked about in the last call, the boundaries of the painting, the frame of the art we're creating together. There might be some things that we have to collectively decide are outside of the frame for now, just so it's not just, a mess of whatever. And then from there, kind of start going through and say, okay, who are the people? What are they doing? And what needs do they have? And how can you find out about their stuff very quickly? I think this is useful. At least I'm excited about it, because I want to be able to spend a few minutes of my weekends and my nights, between other responsibilities, and learn about these cool communities and go, man, that's awesome. And then sometimes it's just a matter of going, oh, you should talk to so-and-so, because I know them really well and I found out about them. And oh my gosh, you guys can totally serve each other in an amazing way.
Like a social network.
Yeah.
Like a reality social network in a way.
Yeah. And I would even phrase it as a network of networks, meaning there are already a whole bunch of social networks and communities that are doing really cool stuff. And sometimes they're just, because of their exclusivity by their very definition of being this is what we've defined ourselves to be, they sometimes don't know about the other things that maybe aren't supposed to be part of what they are, but they're supposed to at least be connected, like the cells in our body, the tissues in our body, the organs in our body are interacting with each other. even though the
Right.
heart is not a lung and the lung is not a kidney. They're still interacting with each other.
Exactly. So it would be amazing to see how, for example, Sarah Viva with the Stokes, with the Ensoulment, with other, how do they interact? That's amazing. Okay, so let's start with the spreadsheet and then we'll see. So can we set up time for next week? Is this time okay for you, Erez? Is it too late, too early? I know you're in the West Coast.
I'll make it happen.
All right.
Yes. No, but I can accommodate. I mean, maybe you'd prefer 7 o'clock your time, 7 a.m. because it's really early. It's 6 a.m. for him was.
I got up at before 5 for the 5 o'clock. So yes, if we can do 7 a.m. my time, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
But if not,
okay.
I'll-
So 7 would be,
Would Wednesday work out okay other than Tuesday? Because I
Yeah.
did skip a meeting to join this one, which I don't always
Yes.
attend, but I'd like to if I can.
yes.
So that would
So
be,
when-
and I do have like a standing meeting that starts at 11:30 my time, but again, that's one that I can skip if needed. So do we want to try to put, it would be, I'm AST, so that's UTC -4, 11 a.m. Wednesday, the 9th. Would that be okay? That would be,
The
I
only
think.
thing, I do have a meeting at 8 a.m. your time, Erez. So that's going to be too tight unless we want to keep it for an hour.
Yeah, let's keep it an hour, because I think if we go
Okay.
longer than that, we might get too many action items or too much into our heads and maybe, I mean,
Okay.
and now we're
so
just getting
then-
started. We might even cut these even smaller once we have
Okay.
more clarity on what we're doing. But and also too, I want to make it clear, I have zero intention of meetings for meeting's sake. So like, while the energy and
Yes.
excitement is here, we keep it going. If it doesn't feel that way anymore, we stop. You know,
No,
that's my
and
thought.
I also want to say for me, what's really important is that something is created out of it.
Yeah.
Very important for me. Because I mean, you know, yeah, we've all been exposed and read and have had rich, I mean, for me, it's 20, 30 years. So for me, it's really about getting something done that really has value.
Awesome.
Okay.
And if I could
So-
add to that really quickly, and Erez, I owe you some documentation because I think I owe you like 100, 150 bucks in crypto. I would love both of you actually just send me a FIO request for some Bitcoin because I want to pay you for your time. I know that sounds weird, but part of my story in this is that I have some crypto. You all want to learn more about the crypto experience, and so Edge Wallet, you go under the Bitcoin wallet in there and say request funds, and Luke at Stokes, you could send me a request for funds. Let me know you did, and I will send you some Bitcoin. I think this is
Could
part
you
of my
send
role.
me-
It's
that
helping
would
you
be-
guys get more familiar with these technologies and also get, like in the
Wow.
days of old, they had the patrons that supported the philosophers. Like, you guys need to be super well supported. You've got decades of wisdom and experience and practical things like paying your bills. Like, I don't want that to be a concern you guys are worried about. I love you to focus on what you're doing. Now, I have to make money too. And my wife would be like, why are you paying for something that doesn't make any money? I don't know yet. We'll find out. But I think this is important. And so
That's
I'm willing to, at
amazing.
least like even I said in the Custo contingent, I'm willing to invest, money to have my team work on this a little bit. No, I don't know what it is or what it's for. I just think it's useful. I mean, it's a good thing. So anyway, if you're open to that, send me a FIO request, Edge Wallet, Luke at Stokes. You go to your Bitcoin wallet, say request funds, and it should be hopefully easy. If it's not, let me know. I'd love to get that feedback as well.
Would you send us this
Yes,
link
I will.
and the guidelines
Yeah.
on WhatsApp, and then I'll do it. That's amazing. You're initiating me into Bitcoin, so that's wonderful. That's number one.
Awesome.
Okay, so next Wednesday at 7 a.m. your time, 7 a.m. Pacific, correct?
Yep, Wednesday the 9th. I will
Okay.
send, I know, Natalie, I know you don't use the calendar as much, so I'll take a copy of the Zoom link that's created in the calendar and I'll send that to you in WhatsApp. Otherwise, I'll send, like I did today, a calendar invite with a Zoom link. Sound good?
Great. Thank you so
right.
much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Have a
you.
Well,
beautiful week.
have an amazing
Bye-bye.
week. Bye.